Hello everyone, welcome to Alex on Irons, and today we're going to be discussing the potential transfer of Mohammed Kudus to Tottenham Hotspur. Yeah, this one's going to be difficult. I know there's a lot of volatile reactions going on, so let's get into the details and see what happened here, what went wrong for Kudus to potentially be going to Tottenham Hotspur for 20 million under his release clause, probably. So Mohammed Kudus obviously transferred to West Ham in 2023. Great first season. His highlights include his goal against Brentford, which was probably one of the best Premier League goals that season, as well as his goal in the Europa League against Freiburg, which was incredible, going across the pitch. Very similar to Declan Rice's goal in the Europa Conference League the season before. And set the scene, it was an interesting window for West Ham. We had to let go of some big players, Declan Rice being one of them, and although he didn't play much for us, letting go of Lucas Scamacca so quickly was a big blow. But we did bring in Mohammed Kudus as well as Edson Alvarez, James Ward-Prowse, and Konstantinos Mavropanos, to varying levels of success of those transfers. I get excited about two kind of transfers, and those transfers are players I don't know because I'm excited to see what they can do. I'm not a football scout, so I'm not going to know a lot of players, to be honest, unless they play in the Premier League or they're on FIFA. And Mohammed Kudus just happened to fit into the latter of the categories there, and I was buzzing to get him in. Again, obviously that knowledge is based off career mode on FIFA, but at the time I was like, this guy's good. Without actually seeing a minute of him play, I was just excited to be at the club. I was like, oh, that player that I've, you get those players that you sign in basically all your career modes. He was that for me. I just thought that's a great sign for West Ham. It shows the calibre of players we can get now because we're in European football. And even though we didn't go on to win the Europa League, it was a really good run. We lost to Bayer Leverkusen, who were on a tear that season, undefeated. And then they lost to the winners, Atalanta, which ironically means Gianluca Scamacca won the Conference League, then transferred to win the Europa League. We'll see if he ever wins the Champions League. It was a really good run, and Kudus' goal and just the way we played in that tournament gave us some excitement going forward. Obviously, that season would also be the last of David Moyes, and we would unfortunately move on to Julian Lopetegui. It didn't work out. But more importantly, it kind of sparked the beginning of the end for Mohammed Kudus, because everything that could have gone wrong sort of did go wrong. He had a bust-up with Lopetegui after the Brentford match, after he got subbed off at half-time. That was a great start. Then he let his anger and frustration known in a match against Tottenham, ironically enough, with Mickey van der Ven and Papa Sarr as well. So that was a 5-game match ban for him. And it was rocky ground. And obviously, a lot of things going on at West Ham at the time weren't great, despite having a really good window. We got in people like Nicholas Füllkrug, we got in Crescent Somerville, Jean-Claude Todibo, Lewis Guillaume, Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I know it didn't pay off this season because of big injuries to Füllkrug and Somerville, and we didn't get to see much of Lewis Guillaume, but I think the season's going to be good for them. However, in the moment, it wasn't great. The vibe in the camp seemed to be quite dour. Jean-Claude Todibo, obviously, as well, got an altercation with Lopetegui, and we ended up sacking him. He was replaced by Graham Potter, and yeah, things improved around the vibe of the club. You see players were happier. Didn't mean the results were better. Going back to Mohammed Kudus, players seemed to improve under Potter, specifically Bowen. I thought Paqueta looked really strong. Wan-Bissaka had a great season all round, but even then, he seemed better. Our defence got better. I know that was a bit of a running thing Graham Potter would use in interviews when we lose 1-0 or draw 1-1 with who should be winning. We were shipping less goals. And he was absolutely right. Even players like Konstantinos Mavropanos got better. I know he, for some reason, got booed at London Stadium towards the end of last season, which I'm not a fan of. But overall, as a player, he was far better. He would make the odd mistake, and normally they are costly, but they would be happening a lot less frequent. But Mohammed Kudus just struggled still. I don't think it's that his heart wasn't in it. I just think that it was because he couldn't find his right position. And in a sense, that's kind of an issue for his entire run at West Ham, because he's traditionally a right winger. Bowen plays there. He can play up front, but when he did, it was sort of only in times when we didn't really play the ball to the strikers, so he barely get any service. He was playing on the left last season, even though Paqueta was better on the left, but he wasn't opted there. And when we moved to the 5 at the back, we opted with wing-backs, which meant that it was going to be Bowen and Kudus up top, with Wan-Bissaka on the right, and normally Emerson or Scholes on the left, which basically meant Kudus was in this weird 2-striker formation as a sort of double false 9. It just didn't suit him. And you could even go back to David Moyes. It didn't suit him then because he couldn't really find his place in the team, but we would normally shift Bowen over to the striker position to allow Kudus to play on the right. And also, I think Moyes' way of playing is just better for Kudus. I just think it was. I know people will say, Moyes works better with less fair players. I agree. However, Kudus, it just seemed to click. If you compare the stats in the first 2 seasons, you've got Kudus scoring 8 goals in the Premier League with 6 assists and 5 goals in the Europa League, compared to this season getting 5 goals in the Premier League and 3 assists. Now, of course, that does come down to performance as well. West Ham finishing 14th with a negative goal difference of 16 will affect those stats. Obviously, we were not as attacking. We were shipping more goals, especially in the first half of the season. And of course, he missed 5 games at least due to having a suspension. However, when you compare it to someone like Jared Bowen, who even during last season, with it being torrid, got 13 goals and 8 assists in the Premier League, you've got to look at that and go, something's not right here. And I love Jared Bowen. He is our best player. I know there's been reports of there's 2 players we're not going to sell no matter what, that being Bowen and Wan-Bissaka, and I agree with those 2, absolutely. I'd probably add Somerville and Paqueta into that if we can keep Paqueta with the ban. But Kudus, he just didn't click last season. Even when he scored his last goal at Ipswich, no celebration. And I think people read into that a bit too much. I think people said, oh, he's definitely off now. It's confirmed. No, I don't think so. I just think at that point we were winning. It was the last minutes of the season. The goal didn't mean anything. It was a torrid season for him. I just think he didn't feel the need to celebrate or the want to. And then as soon as we get to the transfer window, obviously when Potter was signed, we were told that it was going to be backs. And then we get to the summer and Sullivan and Brady, we have to sell before we buy. Right, who are our assets? Well, Bowen, we're not getting rid of Bowen. We could, in theory, get rid of Wan-Bissaka, but we're not going to. So it fell to Mohammed Kudus, who had an £85 million release clause and a higher release clause for Saudi clubs. Didn't want to go Saudi. Didn't want to touch it, which is fair enough. I think, at his age, 24, still got so much time of his career to be playing in Europe and at a high level as well. The reason he joined West Ham was because he could get a release clause. And obviously, I think the release clause price is pretty good. It gave us a good profit on him, and I think it's an acceptable, realistic place that you would assume he'd be in by the second season. However, he was actually valued more, I think, after last season than he would this season, and that doesn't help us because now we're in a situation where Daniel Levy sent a £50 million offer to us, and Davidson's told him to get real. But the issue we have is there not many clubs interested now. There were rumours of Newcastle being interested, but that's cooled off. And there are rumours of obviously the Tottenham deal being called off because they wanted Brian Burmo. But yesterday, Fabrizio Romano has said that he is definitely wanting to go to Manchester United, and that deal is still on. I believe it's going to be close to a here we go, which means that Man United are out of the race. Arsenal are out of the race as they want Nomi Madueke, and that does allow Chelsea to come into the race, but they're not going to come into the race until Madueke is sold. So then we're just stuck with Tottenham. And until you get another club involved, you can't jump up the price because there's no bidding war. I mean, you can slightly do it, so we say that at 50 million, they might throw us 55, but that's 30 million less than the release clause. Now, I realistically think that Kudus will go for 60 to 65 million. I don't think we can get any more. I don't think we should accept any less. Even though we need money to fund this window, it would be ridiculous to sell him for anything less because it would just be pulling our pants down. And unfortunately, we do have other assets that we could sell to make some money. I wouldn't want to, but you've got to do what you've got to do. And I think if you're West Ham, selling for anything under 55, 60 million just doesn't make sense. It doesn't. The question is now, are these clubs the only option? That being Tottenham and Chelsea? Yeah, kind of. And even then, Chelsea are on the back burner, so there's no bidding war. That's why it leads me to think that we're going to sell him for a lot less, because we're not in a situation where Liverpool will want him, or Man United will need him now, or Arsenal will need him because they're getting Noni Madueke in, Newcastle will get Elanga in, Forest might want him, but would he want to take a gamble on Forest? Doubt it. So it kind of just leaves Tottenham and Chelsea. And realistically, would I want to send him to either of those clubs? Absolutely not. Tottenham even less so. However, we're sort of left with no choice. I'm not a massive fan of the idea of him going to Tottenham, and he will get booed next season. That is a fact. And people were saying that there's no loyalty in football anymore. Players are now wanting to go to Tottenham. I get it. Right, I get it. However, you have to look at the landscape of where West Ham are now. When he joined, we were in the Europa League. We just won a European trophy. And last year we finished 14th and didn't do anything in any of the cups. Again, feel bad for Graham Potter in that game against Villa, because while we had Somerville and Fulkrug on the pitch, we looked really good. And they both went off. And the game didn't work out However, we didn't do anything in the cups. Doesn't matter what kind of excuses you use, that is a fact. We didn't progress, we went backwards, we're on another reset season. For a player that's 24 with his attributes, he just won't want to stay here. And unfortunately, sometimes you have to move. And unfortunately, I just don't think Mohammed Kudus is somebody that really cares about that rivalry. I mean, he joined West Ham because Brighton refused to put a release clause in the contract. He saw West Ham as a stepping stone. And I'm absolutely fine with signing players like that. I think when you're a club like West Ham, I think we have to swallow our pride a bit and sit there and kind of go, we're not an appealing option right now. And unfortunately, our rivals are more appealing. And someone like Mohammed Kudus, who's not really going to be thinking about that. He's going to be thinking about his career. And in a sense, rightfully so. It pains me to say it, but rightfully so. He's going to go. And I hope it's not Tottenham, but it probably will be. But again, for me, it has to be at the right price. It won't be 85 million. It'll be around 60 to 65 mark, I think. But also, we need to do it quickly, because if this is how we're going to fund our window, the time is ticking. What do you guys think, though? Let me know in the comments below. I'm sure that you guys are going to have strong feelings on this, as all West Ham fans do. It's a bit of a rubbish situation to be in. Please do subscribe to Alex and Irons. It's a new channel that I'm doing. Just seeing where it goes. I've got some cool videos coming up in the pipeline. And yeah, I'll keep you guys updated on the Kudus situation when it develops. And yeah, take it easy. I'll see you guys soon. Goodbye.